Okay, here we are. Episode 4 of Gibbs It To Me Straight. My name is Ashley J. Williams. This is an NCIS rewatch podcast. My co-host is Robby Thesword. And Robby, do you want to give us more of a formal introduction to what we're about to do?
I certainly can. Hello. This podcast is primarily digging into the early 2000s phenomenon that is the TV show NCIS, starring Mark Harmon, Michael Weatherly, David McCullum. You know them, maybe. You love them, probably not. But this is just one of those forgotten crime procedural shows from the 2000s that, despite the fact that it's still going, one of the longest surviving, isn't maybe the most well-known. And I think, as we're slowly making the point, definitely not the highest quality. It's definitely not the best one.
Yeah. So this is episode 4. We've watched 3 episodes so far. And just before I kind of give the new listener, if we have a new listener, I know we have one listener, but if we get any new listener, I'm not going to even pretend that it's going to be in the plural because I don't have that much.
Well, I have some good news for you.
Oh, okay.
I can tell you from the statistics we've been able to get from our distribution methods, we have at least 5 returning subscribers. And from the 3 episodes we have released, I haven't looked at total download counts, but it's somewhere in the 30s.
Just to kind of level set for the new listener. Again, I don't have so much hubris that I think we're going to pick up a bunch of new listeners. Robby, you have watched every episode of NCIS, right?
I would say that until sometime around the 15th to 16th season is when I stopped consistently watching.
All right,
we'll see if I ever get there.
And some of the episodes you've seen multiple times.
So many of them I have seen an unholy amount of times. This one in particular, I don't remember specific episode names and numbers most of the time, but the one that we're covering today is actually one that I was like, I can't wait till we get until this one, because this one's ridiculous and it's just good, stupid fun.
And I haven't seen any of these episodes. Like, I am so alienated from society that I've missed. I never saw a single episode of The Cosby Show. I have not watched The Godfather, and I have not seen any episodes of NCIS. Right, I am that out in the wood. Like
I think even I've seen a few episodes of The Cosby Show. Yeah, although Family Matters was more our watching in my house.
I think I've seen a couple of episodes of Family Matters, but as I am describing myself, I realize I just described Ted Kaczynski. But anyway, you had said you were kind of excited for this episode, and I'm anxious to get started on it. But I have to ask though, have we received any hate mail? Because we do have a podcast email address.
Oh, let me see. I know that we've received some.
I mean, the only reason I'm doing this is to receive hate mail, and also to hang out with you. But hate mail first.
Let me see. We have a few emails that we can go through. One of them just says, "Hey, your podcast is bad, grr, mean to you, ow." I don't know why they said ow.
Okay.
And then I got another one that isn't even an email. It's just a subject line, and it says, "You guys suck."
Well, that one is actually from me.
Well, the first one was from me.
Oh, okay. So they said something about our self-loathing, but anyway, go ahead.
Honestly, it was very therapeutic. Maybe that's why it said ow. Let me see. What else? We do have some, not hate mail, but we do have some otherwise emails from a listener talking about, I believe, our second episode, specifically about Gibbs's interrogation or idea to do interrogation inside of an airplane. And just, let's see. I'm very concerned about the conclusion of this episode. What the hell was Gibbs thinking? I can say this as someone who has skydived exactly once, so I am an expert. The plane is moving very fast and is very loud. Yet Gibbs wants to do a sensitive interrogation with details, with a wide open door next to him. You can't hear anything. You have to yell. There would be no nuance, no monologuing. Half the words would get lost. This is way less than ideal. And you know what? Agreed. I can see that.
Yeah, I was somewhat discomfited by his flagrant lack of respect for protocol, safety, due process. Right. Just there was a variety of human rights violations that occurred in the span of about 30 seconds.
There was in that episode, and then in the following episode, whenever he for some reason conducts an interrogation inside of the morgue at NCIS, rather than in the interrogation room, which is a room that we saw in both episode 1 and 2. And then he just decides to forego it. Maybe they were doing construction on that specific room that day.
Yeah, and no spoiler alerts, kind of for the entire series, but for any new listener, this show sucks. I mean, this show, like, for me to sit down and just watch it alone in a darkened room, right, slowly getting drunk, that would be no fun. But watching it through your descriptions it has been a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm impressed, actually, that we've gotten email. We don't have to read them all on the air, but have we gotten other emails?
I believe that was all. I think there may have been one other that was talking about episode 3, but it was like just a listener email talking to us about their reaction to it. Maybe we'll talk about that in future. But it was just like it was very similar to what we do, which is talking about and consuming what's happening and then going, what?
Yeah, right.
What?
Yeah, which is kind of the correct reaction to a lot of this nonsense. But
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So I think that covers all the business here. At the end of the episode, we'll talk about our expanding social media presence. But
absolutely,
what is the title of today's? This is episode 4 of NCIS, and therefore episode 4 of this podcast. And what is the title of episode 4 of NCIS?
I hate to put a break on it. We have one short thing we need to do before we continue on to the episode. Very short little conjecture. Mm-hmm. We need to, of course, play America's favorite game.
Yeah, how could I have forgotten?
Bundy.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot harder this time because you've taken it easy on me in the first 3 episodes.
We'll see, because I had been stockpiling. I'd been going through my files trying to be devious. This time, I don't know. We'll see. We're continuing my trend where there's no video. Video would give it away almost immediately. So we just have audio. This one's very short. I believe this is the shortest one so far.
All right. So I have to guess if this is Mark Harmon, the actor, if it's his role from the movie Freaky Friday, if it's his role from the TV movie Ted Bundy, in which he played the title character, Ted Bundy, or if it's Agent Gibbs from NCIS. It's going to be from one of those 3 television vehicles or movie vehicles.
That is correct.
Okay.
And this clip is about 5.5 seconds long.
Okay.
So here we go.
You guys know these yardies? Oh. You're early. What?
I'm pretty sure I know what the answer to this is. So NCIS is
Naval Criminal Investigative Services.
Right. I spent 6 years in the Navy. I lived on a destroyer for 4 years. And one of the terms of affection that we had for dock workers were yard apes. So because NCIS, Gibbs is a Marine, a former Marine, and this is set, in and around naval bases often, or Marine bases, I'm going to say that's Gibbs from NCIS.
A legacy comes to an end. I'm sorry to say.
Wrong? I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Okay. Well, actually, there's a burden to being perfect.
There is.
So, you always want to make an A. Don't make an A+.
Yeah, because then the only thing that even just like not even perfection, but just slightly less than perfection, after you reach it, seems like lesser.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
You want to remain. I mean, like right now, 75% going to be on. Like that's a fantastic track record,
no, it's not
and
bad.
It's only going to keep going up.
I am very surprised that's not NCIS because
also
the kind of soundscape in the background, it sounded like they were like. Anyway, so that leaves Freaky Friday or Ted Bundy, and I honestly can't guess which one of it. Like, I don't know, man.
Should I tell you?
Please.
So that was from Freaky Friday.
Okay.
That's crazy because I didn't even mean to do that. I was like, that's wild. That was not intentional whatsoever.
Well, there it is. My reign of being right is at an end.
At least for now. We may be able to push things back in the right direction.
Okay. All right. So we did that. We got that is a tradition now. 4 episodes in the making.
Indeed.
And now we can start in earnest. And what is the title of this week's episode?
This week's episode is The Immortals.
The Immortals. Okay, so that's not a Marvel Comics movie. It is a title of NCIS.
All right. So we begin in this episode, The Immortals, as ever, with a cold open with just some real attractive people sitting on a boat day drinking.
Okay, so there's going to be a short, sharp act of violence that is going to shock everyone, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, however, before we get into this short, sharp act of violence, like you said, we do just get a guy yelling.
Oh, okay. Well, that
So
sounds...
this is 10 to 15 seconds into the episode, maybe less. This is our first clip. Just got real excited.
Okay.
He just does that.
It sounds
He's
like
just standing there. They weren't even talking.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, he's on a... The listeners can't see this, obviously, but he's on a boat. The weather's nice, you know?
Yeah.
They're young.
The other guy, he's with another guy and then two young women. And the other guy looks really badly sunburned already. I'm going to be honest. But he just screams, and then they're like, hey, chill out a little bit. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to get in the water. I'm going to dive in the water. And they're like, hey, didn't you hear about those reports? There's sharks apparently. And he's like, you guys are wimps. So he puts on a scuba mask and then dives below scuba level.
I just want to say at this point in this scene, I'm on his side, because if you're on a boat and the weather's nice, and you're young, you should scream in joy and go into the water. So all this seems very natural to me, and I don't like his friends.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe they're just looking out for him because they've all been drinking.
Well, they are concerned about the sharks.
Yeah, and the sharks. And I mean, like, also, I can't believe that this episode and last episode both start with young people in some kind of water-ish setting doing something, and then, you know, like last episode, it was like someone was like, hey, you've seen the beginning of Jaws, right? And they were like, yeah. And they were like, what if we just do that again, but with a boat running up onto the beach? And this one's like, you remember Jaws, right? Like, yeah. You know how they're out on the ocean? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what if we just did that? Two in a row.
2 in a row, yeah.
So this guy, he dives down. There's a fairly pleasant underwater footage. It looks good. It doesn't look bad. This guy, he just swims around a little bit. And what does he come across naturally?
A dead body.
He comes across a dead body. Yeah. A dead sailor wearing dress whites, holding an ornate sword, buckled into his belt, held down by a chain.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm trying to visualize that. So it okay, you know, the ocean's kind of big. So I'm impressed that they happen to just be over the spot where this guy died.
I haven't thought about that at all. Yeah, how incredibly improbable is it? I mean, so we'll talk about where this is here in a second. And this is where the intro stinger music hits, where we get, you know, our introduction to all of our characters again, right after he sees this body and then starts swimming away. And then we get a little bit of information sort of backfilled by the folks in the room.
Can I just ask, the chain, is the implication, because you can see this, and is the implication that the chain, like he was purposefully chained, like it's not like he's caught up in a chain, like someone killed him by wrapping him up in chains and throwing him in the water?
Yes, okay. We will talk about that. There's actually another thing I meant to mention a little bit earlier to throw it in here, that this episode does discuss a decent amount relating to suicide, and also relating to religious perspectives on suicide. So if you need to nope out as a result of that, we completely understand.
Gotcha.
Because it's heavy stuff. Okay, so after we get out of the introduction, we're just back at NCIS headquarters. No nonsense about it. They found the body. They were called, yada, yada, yada. And we get a little bit of information. The body was found in the water. It was in there for less than 24 hours. Not in there that long at all. The name of the victim is Seaman Russell McDonald. He was only 19.
Because of the proximity and time to the death, it wasn't like a rotting corpse or anything like they had an actor underwater.
Probably, yeah.
So the poor guy.
But in terms of location, the body was found in the Bahamas on board a ship while it was sort of moving from the Caribbean area up the Atlantic coast.
So to clarify, the body was in the Bahamas.
Yes.
Okay, and they found it. The kids found it.
Yeah.
So when you say it was moving up the coast, I don't.
Oh, sorry, the naval ship. There was the ship that
he fell overboard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And then this just adds that they're talking about, I believe they mention the ship that McDonald was on, I believe they say is the Foster, was leaving from Roosevelt Roads,
Yeah, it's
which
Puerto
leads
Rico.
to this absolutely bizarre reaction from Tony.
Roosevelt Roads.
Yeah.
It's Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Love Puerto Rico.
I'm glad.
No, boss, you don't understand. I love Puerto Rico.
You been there a lot?
No, that's just it. I've never been there.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
I have no idea what's going on here.
Yeah, so that was DeBozo, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know a lot about him other than that he's sexist, he's misogynist, right? But we don't know if he has any hobbies or interests. It's unclear if he has a family. We don't know if he has a wife or children.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know, though, that he has an unhealthy obsession with Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I mean, and like it has nothing to do with him ever being there. It has nothing to do with the weather, with life out on the living on like an island or something like that. We have no idea.
And I take it that there's no callback to this moment. It's just allowed to just.
We'll discuss
Okay.
as things get on later. There's one little thing that I'll mention before we go off on a break, which is within this same short scene, they're discussing the situation around how the body was found. And this is, I think, one of the better written in terms of details where things actually line up with one another in some cases. But this is one of the interesting things that I wanted to point out, not just from like the show being bad perspective, but a like strange institutional level, like the way that the show is depicting the institution of the Navy, which is what Gibbs says about the way that they discovered that the victim was missing.
Sometime night before last, Seaman McDonald went overboard.
Anyone see or hear anything?
No, didn't know he was missing until he failed to report for duty.
I did serve for 6 years in the Navy, and I spent a lot of time in the Caribbean, have been to Roosevelt Roads, have been on ships out in the pitch black of night. And, it was not safe to be outside on above decks when it's, there's no moon or there's cloud cover, because you could fall over and no one would know.
Wow.
Right? No one would know. And I was also just going to say, like, this guy, you said the way you described it was that he was in his dress uniform and he had a sword. And I can speak from experience that enlisted guys just don't walk around we're not pirates. It is a modern ship. And so if he's in his dress uniform and he's wearing a sword, it's for some ceremonial reason, right? And it's doubtful that ceremony would be taking place in the dead of night. So if he fell overboard, it was during daytime.
Interesting.
And if he fell overboard during daytime, probably someone saw him. So it's just the way it's adding up here just doesn't make any sense.
That is a very interesting insight. I'm really glad that you have that, because there's a not inconsequential few pieces of information that you have there.
Okay. Well, I almost hesitated to say it because I didn't really care for the Navy, so I don't really talk about it that much, right?
All right. So after they discuss this, have this little thing, they all go down to the morgue and look at the body and talk to Ducky a little bit. And they get a little bit more information about the sword. And they do specifically mention whether or not this 19-year-old seaman should have this weapon.
The sword?
Officer's ceremonial.
Our man's enlisted.
Yeah. Doesn't make much sense, does it?
Here's something else for the mystery tour. This so-called ceremonial sword is sharp enough to slit someone's throat.
It seemed weird to me that the enlisted guy would have had a sword when you mentioned it, but I also recognize that this show is not going to hew to reality.
Right.
But anyway, so it's a good call out. So it is odd that this enlisted guy, despite the fact that he's in his own dress uniform, has a sword, because that would normally be something that a commissioned officer would have.
Yes. So they talk about this, and also I'm going to assume they're specifically making note that it is sharpened, and I'm going to assume that most of the time, obviously, since these things are ceremonial, they're not sharpened.
But
they're
they're
just
dull.
made. Yeah.
Yeah.
So awful for cutting tomatoes, if I've learned anything from infomercials.
So that's a bit of a digression.
All right, so after they go through talk about this, Ducky also mentions that there was a chain wrapped around his waist, and secured to that chain were two 25-pound weights. And, that is definitely like what caused him. He fell very quickly after he got into the water. After this, Gibbs then assigns Denozo to go and talk to next of kin. And I have a clip.
Why me, boss? Wouldn't a woman be more sympathetic? That's why Kate is going with you.
I'm sure Tony can handle it alone.
When did an order turn into a debate?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we get a little bit of rivalry there.
Well, and also, maybe this is a 2025 perspective, right? But DeBozo, basically, he was the one refusing the order.
Exactly. Yeah.
But when Kate just sort of, and also, what he said was sexist. Okay.
Oh, sure.
And her rejoinder is she's actually expressing confidence in his abilities to be able to do this task, but she's the one who's reprimanded.
You know what? I feel like we're strangely going to get a little bit of that flavor in here, where this episode is like, why did that, like, what, it feels like now, after a few episodes of Kate, they're like, we need to pull back on this, because originally we played Kate and Gibbs together a bit too softly, and now we need to go in a little bit deeper, or go in a little bit harsher on the two of them, and I just don't understand. So after we get this, Tony and Kate going off to talk to next of kin, they go and talk to his mother. They're looking at some stuff, just talking around the house, asking, did he have any friends on the ship, kind of thing. And then they see there's a sword that is hanging on, I think, a pair of antlers on her wall. And they ask, was the victim's dad also in the Navy? And she says that his dad was Scottish, and that he died whenever the victim was 12.
So,
and then they get, sorry?
Is that a claymore then, the sword?
I don't know if they specifically say, but it could be.
Okay. I mean, I just, what is the association between him being Scottish and there being a sword on the wall and on some antlers?
That's a great, I guess they just wanted to be like, oh yeah, he's seen swords before.
Okay. We're not very far into this episode and things just don't make sense, but okay.
Yeah. They're sort of poking, asking questions around, and the mom just sort of dives right at it.
He would not have killed himself. It's a mortal sin.
Okay.
That is the moment where they do an almost comedic pan over of what the woman is looking at, which is just a little miniature Mary figurine just sitting on a mantle.
Ah, so she has Catholic guilt as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We also we learn of at least one more Catholic person throughout the rest of this episode.
But they do walk among us.
You know what? With the Pope having been so much in the news recently, it's hard not to feel the tiniest bit Catholic just from knowing so much.
Yeah, we're all Catholic now.
So then we also realize while Tony and Kate were walking into this house to talk to the mother, they're sort of setting up this dramatic thing where Tony is nervous to have to do this, and he's not sure. And Kate tries to comfort him genuinely and is like, hey, just breathe. It's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. And then he sort of goes, you don't even know, man. And she says, just think of Puerto Rico. Sort of a joke to dismiss it before they do. Then as they're leaving, Kate is like, man, why didn't you tell me that they, how they're like? He was like, I didn't know.
Wait, so she asked him, why didn't you tell me what they are like? Is she referring to the family?
Yeah, like
okay.
What notifying next of kin is like. And this is when we learn that this is also Tony's first time talking to the mother or the family of a victim.
I see. Okay, so she was saying, why didn't you tell me what this experience was like?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And his response is, I've never done this before. So Gibbs essentially sent two people out to this is a very somber responsibility that should be treated with care and precision, and he sent out two people that have no idea what they're doing.
I mean, you'd think that, especially if you're working in an area that deals a lot with having to investigate, or even just the military in general, that a lot of people that would ever be facing the families of enlisted, you would get some kind of training on here's how to inform people about the death of their loved one.
Yeah, I feel like in the last episode they had to go to sexual harassment training.
Yeah.
But they also, but there's a gap in their training when it comes to, informing next of kin of victims, and their job is to investigate violent crimes. Oh, okay, yeah, all right, fine.
Yeah, crossing those T's and dotted those I's is not quite working out. So right after this, we make a dramatic shift where the main core team, Gibbs, Tony, and Caitlin, are all moved onto the Foster itself, the ship, in order to conduct a further investigation. They all just get on there, get off of a helicopter, and are given a welcome.
So they have been helicoptered out to the ship that's out to sea.
Yes.
Okay. And are we gonna see this ship?
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So we not long after they get in, the lieutenant commander of the ship is giving up his room for NCIS, but as they're entering, he kind of seems to wave them off. We have a clip.
Enter.
Lieutenant Commander Robbins, Agent Gibbs.
Shit, you're giving up your...
Not a problem.
NCIS is always welcome aboard, sir. You can expect excellent cooperation.
Appreciate that, Master Chief.
If you need anything...
I won't hesitate.
Okay, so they don't like having NCIS there.
Yeah, they really just they're just really bleh.
Yeah.
Very immediately toxic. Although, I mean, they do sort of say vaguely later in the scene, they don't really like us. They think we're the internal affairs of the Navy.
So there was very little murder and mayhem on the ship that I served on. So we never had NCIS on board. But I don't recall anyone having an opinion about NCIS. Okay.
Other than maybe later on in life, maybe they had an opinion about the show.
Or it would have been more like, who are you guys?
Yeah. Wait a minute. Who?
Yeah, they are kind of obscure.
Oh. Yeah, maybe Jag was Jag more of a thing?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I was much more familiar with that term, both in the military and as a civilian. But
interesting.
And there's a Defense Investigative Service, DIS, that I had heard of, but not an NCIS.
Oh.
Anyway.
I've not heard of that one. Interesting parallel.
God, I'm so terrible with names. The nice lady who is on the team, I've forgotten her name. The former Secret Service agent.
Oh, Caitlin Todd.
Caitlin Todd. She's with them, is that right?
Yeah, she's with them on the ship.
Okay. Which probably was at a time when women were not allowed to serve on combat ships. So she is probably the only female on that ship at that moment.
We will explore some of that a little bit. Mm-hmm. So right after this, while they're sort of packing up all their stuff, Gibbs tells Tony to get a laptop set up and establish a connection with NCIS so that they can talk to Ducky, so that they can talk to Abby about the autopsy and about all of the other stuff that they're going to be doing. Agent Todd pretty immediately is like, hey, there's not a lot of room in here.
It tends to be true on warships.
And she asks this question.
We're not all sleeping here, are we? Together?
I'll take the couch.
I have to believe in real. They would have made an accommodation for her. Right.
I can assume so. Or even if the option is there is a bed that's fairly small and a couch, you give the couch to the woman, the person that's going to sleep by themselves.
Right.
And then you, what's the big whoop? What's the problem?
Yeah, and, I think with this show, I mean, I don't know what it's like to be an NCIS, but they seem less like stoic professionals and more like, players on a team, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the right words for it, but I think there's a degree of formality that occurs in these instances, which we just don't really see, right? I mean, there's been several examples of highly unprofessional behavior. But, you know, I guess they're just one big happy NCIS family.
It's a strange horseshoe situation where we're going all the way from, like, we're dramatizing something so much that we're taking the reality out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Whereas
a good way to
if
put
this
that.
were following like a reality show,
Yeah.
they would be taking they would be turning the drama that does exist way up, rather than pulling all of the realism out of it.
Yeah. I do remember, actually, we had, because I served at the time when the first Persian Gulf War, right? And we had journalists on our ship when we were out to sea. And I remember at least one of them being female. And I am positive that they gave her her own stateroom. And they would have taken a couple of junior officers and just doubled them up for the time that she was there, right? But anyway, let's don't let me rain on our parade by spending time in reality.
I've just been like soaking all of this information in. This is interesting little background to get, just to see how much more the show can disappoint us.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm already disappointed, but I'm also, I have confidence in their ability to disappoint me even further.
After they get set up and then they talk a little bit here and there, Tony and Gibbs just start sort of going around the ship talking to various people. Kate does as well, start figuring out some stuff. We get fairly vague information. Oh, he had his quirks. He was a little bit weird, but he was good at his job. He was kind of lacking. We get mixed signals all over the place. Gibbs goes to search his bunk, that kind of thing. A lot of them are arriving at the question of, do you think he could have committed suicide? Do you think that for whatever reason he would have killed himself? And like you were saying, regarding the question of whether or not women were or weren't allowed on warships, we have this scene where Agent Todd talks to the medical corpsman.
He was having a hard time adjusting to ship life. I suggested he get into counseling.
Was he receptive?
No, ma'am. He just wanted to talk to me.
So once they've each of the characters sort of go off and do individual things, Kate is talking to this medical corpsman, Tony is talking to some other people, Gibbs is searching through his bunk. Then we get this absolutely bizarre moment out on the deck of the ship where they're coming back together and establishing the information they have. I have two clips from the same scene, but this one I'm just going to play out because I'm mystified and entranced by.
God, dead kid wearing dress whites for no reason, with a sword he shouldn't have on, which is not supposed to be sharp, at the bottom of the ocean with weights on.
He was a brilliant but troubled computer tech who lived at work and had a mysterious friend.
That little scene I was listening to, I heard it 3 or 4 times because I was making sure I was getting the cuts right. But I was like, how has this never been sampled before?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Because it sounded so musical.
It really did. Yeah, do you mind playing it again?
Yeah, sure.
God, dead kid wearing dress whites for no reason, with a sword he shouldn't have on, which is not supposed to be sharp, at the bottom of the ocean with weights on.
He was a brilliant but troubled computer tech who lived at work and had a mysterious friend.
Yeah, it does have a musical quality. It has a lyrical quality to it.
And also for the folks at home that are listening, since they're out on the deck, they're being just accosted by wind, and it is so blindingly clear that that all of the lines that they're saying in this moment are ADR'd in, because it doesn't sound like they're talking outside. But yes, we do have one more clip from this little moment where Gibbs reveals that he found something in the victim, Seaman McDonald's bunk.
You know that razor-sharp sword he was wearing? He was teaching himself how to use it.
Was it a samurai sword?
No, it was a ceremonial sword, but he was using a Japanese swordsmanship book to teach himself how to use it.
Generally, I'm just gonna say, ships, they don't really like it when you just kind of carry around personal weapons.
We'll get to that.
Okay, right, because that's a little far-fetched too, but okay.
So after they have this little reveal, that was clearly off to a commercial break where they have that little reveal and they come back. Whenever we come back from this commercial break, they go through just what they found on the body, because it's still at the NCIS lab, and it's being looked over by Ducky and Abby. They find some pretty typical stuff. The victim was wearing a St. Christopher medal on his neck.
Oh, very Catholic. Yep.
Yes. They sort of just say, oh yeah, not a ton of stuff, not crazy. They also mention that somewhere on his person, they found some interesting looking documents.
My guess is it's some sort of character charter for a fantasy game.
What kind of game?
It looks like an MMORPG.
What?
Oh my God.
MMORPG? It's a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. They're huge on the internet.
These are, it's 2003, man. So these are, I mean, they'd been around for a little while, right? Since like the late 90s, but still, there was like some breakthrough kind of, not moments, but transitions of time where these kind of subcultures, online subcultures, started to break through to the public consciousness, and I think this is one of them.
Whenever things like this were being mentioned on television,
the type of person that's watching this show, I just have this mental image of them like being middle-aged, maybe empty nesters, right? And so all this would be new lingo to them.
Yeah, and I mean we see that perfectly reflected in the way that Gibbs reacts to this news in the next clip.
Abby, are games like this violent?
Well, there's poisoning, thievery, stabbings, decapitations, the occasional garrote.
I'd say that's violent.
What should we look for in his hard drive?
If he's any good, he won't leave any footprints.
So where's the evidence, if there is evidence?
Cyberspace.
Oh my God. What? So if he's any good, he won't leave any footprints. What does that come from?
I really don't know that they're just like.
I mean, so so that sentence works if, yes, he was a member of a cybercrime syndicate. Okay, with that predicate, yeah, if he's any good, he won't leave any evidence. But this guy is just some random dude on a Navy ship who's bored out to sea playing online games. Why would he go the extra step of cleaning up any evidence that he was playing this game from his computer? There's nothing illegal about playing games so far.
Well, I think the implication that they're making, I think, is that he wasn't doing this on a personal device.
So he was using military hardware to play this game?
That's what they seem to depict.
Okay.
That he was, while on station, playing an MMO.
Okay. All right. I mean, there's you could bring personal devices on board with you out to sea. Like I played computer games out to sea. I finished Super Mario Brothers 3 during the deployment, right? So there's nothing. He wouldn't have to use military hardware to play the game. Also, that doesn't even make any sense, right?
I figured it wouldn't.
So, I mean, I don't know what, because even at the time of this airing, I had been out of the military for a long time, right? And the electronics that I worked with were ancient compared to what was, being used in 2003. But the average, I got to believe that if you stumbled across a computer in a radar room somewhere on this ship in 2003, it would not also be compatible for playing Doom.
Yeah, I wouldn't I believe that they say that he worked a station in combat intelligence or combat communication, something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And I'd hesitate to believe that you could just alt tab.
Yeah, right.
Out of doing that.
Right. I mean, these systems are not built by Dell. Right. So anyway, I don't want to ruin it for everyone by, but anyway.
So we've got a little bit more after Kate very dramatically just says cyberspace.
Oh yeah, then there's that. Thank you for reminding me, and that would be a new term, I think, to a lot of people as well.
I'd probably guess so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a little bit of this left. Let me play.
Can you find it?
Maybe. These gaming sites are run by anonymous server clients in every country on the planet.
So when he said, "Can you find it?" I thought he was asking her if she could find cyberspace.
That seems like a question Gibbs would ask.
Is the cyberspace in the room with us right now? Oh boy, this is great.
But I think that also that line where I guess they're trying to find in like his account or something like that, his account on whatever MMORPG he played, as if it wouldn't be on the piece of paper he had, as if it wouldn't be identifiable from that. She just says, "Oh yeah, but these things are run off of server clients all over the world."
Yeah, what? So you just reminded me. He had like a piece of paper that was like a character sheet or something.
Something like that, or she calls it a character charter.
I thought they were going to go the whole Dungeons and Dragons Satanic Panic route there for a moment. But so now they're at a point where they want to try to track down this guy's account on whatever World of Warcraft server it's on.
After this, they just like set off on trying to find the stuff. And the rest of the team go in sort of different circles. Tony goes and talks to, I believe, an officer on the ship who has a sword.
Blade, acid etched and hand polished. The fittings, guard, and pommel are 24-karat gold plated. As late as the 1800s, a sword like this would have been used to defend against an enemy trying to board a ship. Only the blade would have been sharp enough to take a man's limb off. I always liked pirate movies. Didn't you?
Not really.
Of course, today, it wouldn't stand much of a chance against the 9mm H&K MP5 Parabellum, would it?
Guess you like gun movies, too.
I like all weapons, sir.
He's very enthusiastic about his job.
Really, I mean, he seemed very, like, I'm ready to give the information, but I wonder how many times they had to run that scene, because he has to seem sort of up, like, high on himself. And the etching that they did on that sword, I have no idea what it was meant to signify, because also I don't know why that would be a thing, like these ceremonial swords where it's like, oh yeah, unless you are being presented it, or it's a thing that you could hang on a wall after a period of duty, I don't entirely understand the idea of decorating this sword that might spend a lot of time inside of a guard.
I don't either. I don't have any insight into that. I got to believe that, if you're a young naval officer and you've just kind of been commissioned, being handed a sword would be a pretty exciting thing, right?
You know what? I can't disagree with that.
Yeah, and I expect that they might even personalize them in some ways.
Oh, sure.
I wasn't important enough to have any of that. I mean, so it was on a different level than I was enlisted, so nobody cared about me.
Well, the important thing is we care about you now.
Thank you. That's very. Except I'm sure we're going to get some hate mail.
Well, you never know. So after this, Gibbs goes. It's also worth noting somewhat that Gibbs inevitably gets MMORPG wrong like 5 times throughout the episode. That is expected and played for laughs of the people that don't know about technology, like we were talking about.
Yeah, he's a proxy for the audience, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Gibbs talks to the skipper of the ship, talks to the head of the ship, and asks, hey, we have some ideas about what was going on this ship. Is there anything you could help us with? Could you give us some info? And then they have this short little conversation here.
Well, Skipper, I'm sure you know this ship better than anyone else under your command.
Inside and out, Agent Gibbs.
So, if you wanted to stage a sword fight with another shipmate and not get caught.
Damage control in the machine shop at night.
Okay, so we're now at the sword fighting phase of the mystery.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever actually made that point that they found this sword, and then after taking a look at it, Abby has determined that there are nicks on it. That there are points of damage after the sword was sharpened, that there were points of damage on it, either from hitting something or from hitting another sword.
Okay, yes, all right. So, and was it the sword that we just saw in the previous scene? Or they're just like swords laying around the ship, right? Like you're just kind of going around the ship like in a first-person shooter. You break a crate, there's a sword in there, right?
You just take it around and start throwing it at people until it breaks.
Yeah.
No, so this was specifically the sword that the victim, Seaman McDonald, had on him.
Oh.
They recovered and found nicks on it that seemed to indicate that he was using it in actual sword fights.
Okay. Although, if you hand me a sword, I'm not going to hurt anybody with it because I probably would hurt myself. but I'm probably going to see, hey, can I chop that little tree down or not? You know, like I'm probably going to hit some stuff with it, so I'm probably going to nick it up. So I think just by virtue of the fact that it is a sword, right? Someone somewhere is going to be like, I want to try to cut something with this, and so it might get nicked up. So it's not unusual to me that the sword might have some nicks in it.
I wouldn't say so. Yeah. I mean, other than the fact that he's not supposed to have it at all.
Well, there's that. Yeah, that's what's unusual.
So after we get into this, once Abby is sort of investigating, trying to find more information about the victim
in cyberspace,
she begins playing the game. She begins playing this game, or I guess just this is the first one she happened upon, I guess, and she finds it. That it is this game called The Immortals.
Okay.
And I'd recommend folks, I don't know if there are clips of Abby playing it up on YouTube. Maybe we could maybe I'll post those separately, of Abby playing this game, I say, with auditory finger quotes, that it is so clearly like someone animated something, just like they animated something and then told her to pretend like she was playing a game.
Oh, so they show some in-game footage.
They do. They show her playing the game.
And it's and I've seen this in other shows, particularly like, and this time, like, it's really easy to render stuff now, right? But back then, like, it was super expensive. And so, yeah, they probably just animated something to mock it up, to make it look like a game. And so she's essentially just kind of playing air guitar against a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Probably that she definitely couldn't see.
Yeah.
And I'll probably try and put that video together. It's probably going to be on our YouTube page of just all of the clips of her mashing a keyboard and mouse. Or just typing. She's just typing.
Yeah.
There's no UI, just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it really wouldn't work as a clip for this audio podcast, but I am curious enough that I'm going to try to hunt down some clips of that because I'd like to see it.
If I can scare it up easily, I will share it to you. But the way that they have her just like hammering, and they do it in different ways. They have her hammering at the keyboard, or they have her clicking the mouse a bunch and hammering the keyboard as if she's never played a video game on a computer before. But I also know 2003, like, controls weren't standardized as much as they are now. Where, like, I'm pretty sure the original Doom you didn't use a mouse, is that right? You only played with the keyboard?
You know, I don't remember. That's probably true. Abby is the proxy for the younger audience, or what they imagine a young person to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, she goes through all this fantasy babble, basically, where she's like, I got defeated by the Glognoth, and then I have to go through all the way to Barthamok's castle again and defeat the elf.
As you do. Yep. Right.
Yeah. Whenever you don't know anything or about like you watched Lord of the Rings maybe a little bit, or I guess you couldn't have. Maybe you watched Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings whenever you were 10 and now you write for a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And after she does this, she's consuming just copious energy drinks for a brand they created for the show. I can't remember what they're called, but they're these huge-looking, just styrofoam cups of energy drinks. Calf Pow, I think that's what they're called.
It has electrolytes that plants crave.
And she's just downing these things, and Ducky keeps on bringing her more while she's playing this game. And eventually, she finally wins. She's so excited, and for some reason, beating this certain boss in this certain part of the game grants her access to a login screen.
Wait a minute.
Or like some kind of database of information about all of the players in the game.
Wait, okay. All right. So this just went from this, now we're in Tron territory, right?
Yeah.
Like she's entering the Matrix, but you just sort of glossed over the fact that Ducky is bringing her these energy drinks. I thought she was just at home kind of doing some research on the side and kind of got into this game. I don't know why I created that scenario in my head, but the way you describe it, this is part of her job as an investigator.
Yeah, she's doing this on her lab computer in her office.
In the office, and Ducky is bringing her these energy drinks because, as far as he knows, she's pulling an all-nighter trying to do some heavy forensic research.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Some digital forensics.
And is the implication that she has beaten the game or that she's just defeated one of the bosses?
I really can't tell. I feel like it's a little bit of both. I'd say maybe that she defeated a boss somehow.
Okay.
Like she made it to this. I made it to the last layer of the dungeon, and then I was able to defeat this whatever. And then it just presents her with a way she can look at every single person that's ever played it or ever beat that dungeon. Like that's where she's starting. You're part of the government.
Oh right, yeah. I mean, like yeah, there is that. Yeah. I mean, I would think that they would have, some tools that would obviate the need for a low-level staffer to spend an all-nighter
to play a video game.
Working up a skills tree so that she can defeat this video game, right? But isn't the whole point of those massive multiplayer games, which I never actually played, because I just like playing solo games because I don't get along with anybody. But isn't the whole point of those things is that they never end?
For that they have either like these very consistent repeating cycles, or they have a lot of quests where you have to do something that takes a very long time, or you have to like collect this resource you can only gather in certain increments of time,
right? Or
every so often, or from so many places. So yeah, the feasibility of doing this, like I can't see someone attempting to find the same information by like beating the first segment of Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah,
because it takes like 120 hours.
Well, that was the other thing, man. Like, gee whiz, the time frame implied here is just like overnight, right?
No, it doesn't seem like it. It seems like she does this in
an afternoon,
something like that. Yeah, because they haven't even spent a full night on the ship yet.
That's not how that works. That's not how any of that works, right? I mean, like kids get sucked into our young people or even older people get sucked into these games, and they spend thousands of hours playing them, right? And she just knocks it out. What she really is, a cyber genius, isn't she?
Maybe she found some cheats. Maybe she found some good stuff.
She found God mode somehow.
After she she found all this information. She calls Gibbs on the ship and just really info dumps on it.
Yeah.
I found the site McDonald frequented. He was playing his character Waylon.
Like the singer?
More like the mystical half-elf warrior Waylon. It's Weylin. That charter we found in McDonald's body, it referred to his main rival, Kinvaris. Their main mode of combat was parley.
Abby.
Sword fighting. Oh, and here's the big whoop.
Fine. Whoop me.
The guy who plays Kinvaris logs on from the Foster. The same ship you're on.
So it's two guys on the same ship that are basically, they're playing it like it's a LAN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how they weren't able to figure that out from the beginning?
Mm-hmm. I mean, they could have just called their buddies over at the NSA. They could have sorted it out in a few minutes.
Yeah, or I'd imagine if you're playing an MMO from a Navy ship, there's got to be some kind of record of like, hey, do we have any irregular activity from where this guy was playing this video game?
Well, also they're out in the middle of nowhere, right? And so you can't just hook up to your neighbor's Wi-Fi to be able to play these games, right? They're potentially like hundreds of miles away,
right,
from any land, right? And you may not be aware of this, but a senior enlisted person just within the past few months was running an unauthorized Wi-Fi network on her ship.
Oh, I think I remember hearing about this.
Yeah, she lost her career because of that, right? And she's not a junior person.
A major security fail point, right?
Yeah, and she was not a junior person. I want to say she was like a senior enlisted, like E7 or above. So that's someone that had invested, 15 years into her career, and it was career ending.
Oh my gosh!
Right. And so I mean, setting aside that, right? Like how are these guys getting an uplink? Is my question out to sea, right?
Yeah, I'm like, are they running their own server instance?
Are they running their own transmission satellite network, right? Because again, they're out in the middle of nowhere, and the ships can communicate with each other obviously through like radio and GPS and all this kind of stuff, right? But those are for official services, right? I don't think, and these are more modern ships, so to qualify, I served a long time ago, right? But I don't think you can just like piggyback off a military grade signal just so you can play your video game. It seems very, very far fetched.
Yeah, I think the further we're tumbling down this, the more we're like, how could you even begin to get this to work?
Yeah, see, I get trapped in the weeds of like, yeah, exactly. Like I have questions.
I think that the military wouldn't let you install video game executables, let alone one that accesses the internet constantly.
Yeah. It's crazy. So yeah, the whole thing just seems kind of silly, but it's silly in ways that I think the average viewer watching this in 2003, they wouldn't care about any of this.
Right. Yeah.
So it would pass their smell test.
Oh man.
Because that's when you're a young person, even if you're in the military, that's what you do. You play online games, you download cars and drugs and stuff, and you go to raves and so on.
You fight each other with swords.
That's it. I mean, these kids today are just out of control.
So they get this download of information, and then Gibbs and Kate start exploring the part of the ship where the skipper believed that the sword fights could be taking place. And I swear, I don't know what was up with Mark Harmon, but he is really pulling a Jim Caviezel here in terms of being the most mumbly, I was going to say motherfucker, the most mumbly motherfucker on the planet. Because I can't imagine speaking this quietly whenever you're trying to get people to make sure they understand you.
Hey, look at these marks.
More here.
That's a pretty small room.
Yeah.
I feel like you would need a little more room than that to have a proper sword fight. Although
and I think she crossed through the diameter or the length of that whole thing in maybe 1.5 steps. Yeah, but it's almost impossible to tell because of how quiet he is being. Mm-hmm. But at the very, very beginning of that clip, he's saying, "Kate." It's so incredibly quiet. But they go through this, and we also get another little instance of Gibbs. Maybe it's Kate. Maybe it's the both of them. They're sort of sharing this experience where we see an instance of the sword fighting, which is clearly meant to be like a flashback because it's sort of in tinted grayscale-ish. Yeah. But we like to think here at Gibbs It To Me Straight that at least someone on this team has magical powers.
Gibbs himself is of the paranormal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know why he's seeing things. I understand the visual language within film of telling someone this is what he's imagining. Mm-hmm. But even so, I don't know why they felt like they needed to get the B footage. I can imagine even if you just play the sound, I can imagine what a sword hitting another sword or a sword hitting metal sounds like. It sounds like metal hitting metal.
I watched Excalibur. I know what it sounds like.
Yeah. Much less shiny in these, unfortunately.
And also, I just want to point out, if the route they're going here is a suspicion that there's two guys on this ship that have taken their fantasy world in cyberspace, which is a real place, by the way. You can go live there if you want to. If they're taking their fantasy world from cyberspace and kind of having it cross over to real life and then engaging in these sword fights. Earlier in the beginning of the episode, they made a big deal out of the fact that his sword was really sharp.
Yeah.
Right? So you would do that if you wanted to kill your opponent, right? So, I've been to a Ren Fair before. Those things are covered up in foam because they don't want to kill each other.
Right.
So that seems a little far-fetched to me as well.
We do kind of move through that here in a moment. I can't remember where I lost this thread. I apologize. Mm-hmm. But somewhere between Gibbs getting this information and then them searching the stuff, Tony also finds out, Tony finds out that they were able to confirm where the victim, Seaman McDonald, got his sword from. He got it from the base exchange at Roosevelt Roads. And he's saying, hey, I could go over there, I could pose as enlisted, I could buy one of these, and then I could bust them for, selling these things to enlisted members and then get some info. And he manages to convince Gibbs to let him just go to Puerto Rico.
Okay, so he's going to go undercover and try to buy a sword from the exchange.
Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, this is DeBozo, and it's a cockamamie scheme, so naturally it works out perfectly, other than the fact that he makes a woman mad at him.
And so he's pretending to be an enlisted man. So does he ever get into uniform?
He's in like the bluish type stuff.
The dungarees.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the words, but he's wearing that sort of light blue color uniform.
Right. Okay.
But then after he gets some information, he calls Gibbs on the phone, talks over some stuff. We get this short little scene of him enjoying Puerto Rico.
The base exchange was selling swords to enlisted. One was definitely to Seaman McDonald. There were 3 other seamen who had legally bought officers' swords, and I've got their descriptions. Okay, where are you? I'm waiting for my helo ride. It's gonna be a couple hours, though. Hey! What is that? It's music, Gibbs. Don't be so paranoid. You know I'm a professional.
So fucking stupid. Okay. Yep. Well, he found what he needed to find.
Yep.
So we're moving the plot forward.
Abby was continuing to play this game, and somehow, like we were discovering before, she managed to get into the victim, Seaman McDonald's, account, or something similar to it. But now she has fully hacked into his account, and for some reason, this leads her to a journal he was writing, basically, about his character from the perspective of his character. And he was just writing this very lengthy fan fiction, it seems like.
Inside the game.
Maybe inside the game? It has to, otherwise how could she have access to it? It was somehow just stored inside the game.
I'm telling you, man, this is Tron.
So, through reading these, she finds out what they've already discovered, which is that the players are on the same ship, and that they're taking these fights, because they would meet in the game and then fight in the game. And that they were taking these fights to the next level by beginning to fight in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever Abby calls Gibbs' phone to give him a little bit more information, while Gibbs is questioning one of the other guys that bought one of these swords, and Abby has some terse words for Seaman McDonald, the victim, and the other guys that have been playing this game.
If he's anywhere near as whacked out as his rival, tell Gibbs to watch his neck.
You got into McDonald's diary?
I did. This guy had diary of the keyboard.
You sort of skipped over that last part, but it showed her kind of scrolling through.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this game, and I don't know, kids today, I don't know how these games work, right? I'm pretty good at Pac-Man. These games not only, they're full-featured. They not only offer you a combat experience, but also you can exercise your literary desires as well.
Well, it is kind of funny because nowadays you can open Minecraft and you can craft a book and a quill and you can write in it.
Yeah, but that's Minecraft, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's Minecraft.
I someone actually put together a working computer inside Minecraft.
I know, and I have no idea how it works.
Yeah,
I don't understand it at all.
That's like, wheels within wheels within wheels. But she has found this guy's journal inside this game, so the game not only offers you the ability to play in a RPG, but then you can basically just have a diary online. Yeah. It's an in-game blog.
And at the end of that phone call that they show, Kate offers to read through the diary, which seems very lengthy. It does not seem short. And somehow she gets through most of it very quickly. I feel like they're only on there for maybe a day-ish, a day and a half. And she seems to get through it very, very fast. But the last entry, as they're going through it, definitely seems like the victim was incredibly paranoid and that he wants to set off a biological bomb on the ship.
What the fuck? Oh, yes. My God. So this is the moment from the previous episode where it went from, we think there's a suspected drug deal to all right, terrorists are involved.
Yes, yeah.
This is that moment, but for this episode.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think there's this part where they're reading through the diaries. Apparently Kate has read through this thing multiple times trying to find more information. And she's reading through and she says, oh, look at this one part.
McDonald says that after he makes his escape, he'll destroy his enemies by releasing a great plague against the realm as the sun sets beneath the next full moon.
Files on the way.
At first I thought the kid was just going to perform some act of political violence by setting off a biological weapon on a Navy ship. But this scene sets it up as this kid is so delusional that he's living his fantasy in real life. And it's, sure, a biological weapon, but in his mind, it's a plague. So he's like some sort of wizard or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So naturally, seeing this threat, Gibbs immediately is like, tell everybody we're on the highest alert possible. Start searching the entire ship, all of the vents, do everything possible to see if we can prevent this from happening and get as many more details as possible, as much as we can. And there is this rival that they've referenced, this rival that's also on the ship, whose name is Kinvaris, was apparently better at this game than the victim was.
Well, apparently everybody's better at this game than the victim was, because Abby mastered it in an afternoon.
Apparently. Maybe this game is so incredibly easy.
Well, I actually had a note here that Abby has not only mastered this game in an afternoon, that this kid spent potentially months playing, and she's also completely absorbed and deconstructed his innermost intimate thoughts through his journal, right?
Yeah.
So Abby basically has mastered this guy.
It seems like it. Yeah. So during this very high tense moment where they're also interrogating this other kid, Kinvaris, while he's playing the game, they're telling him, like, go back into the game and see if there's anything you can find in there. And he goes into the game, and somehow something he does to the victim's character, Waylon, somehow it executes some kind of code.
God, don't do it. Don't. You're going to tell me that they do something in cyberspace, which is a real place, you can live there. They do something in cyberspace that sets off a series of events where there's going to be a real world consequence. You're going to tell me that, and I don't want you to tell me that.
No, well, maybe it's not that much, but he like starts getting in there, and then it goes through and it just starts deleting everything. It starts deleting all of his game stuff, and then his account, it just says, like, your whole account is gone. Everything's deleted. So he manages to put into this game somehow this bug where everything just gets deleted.
That's quite a mod.
So again, we have a whole nother layer of how the hell could you possibly do this? I also have in my notes that all of this very tense drama, because they're cutting constantly to, like, Kate is trying to read more and figure out what to do. There are all these teams that are wearing gas masks, looking through vents, trying to find danger, trying to find these biological bombs or whatever thing McDonald put there. But then they're cutting to these really bad low resolution shots of the ship. And it's because they're showing, because it's as the sun is setting, and that's whenever this thing is going to happen.
Right. It's probably some stock footage that they got.
Something like that. Right. Or just, but before the era of drone footage. My God, how did we do it?
Yeah.
They have this last minute realization, or actually, I'm sorry, I'm skipping over a clip. We've got two sort of longer clips at the end here, but this is Gibbs just getting really desperate while they're trying to figure stuff out. He gets one more little ounce of information out of the victim's rival.
A little more than 20 minutes, Zuger. What is it you're not telling me?
You want the crew of this ship to die? He was crazy, He really thought he was immortal. He thought you were Kinvaris, didn't he? That's why you fought with real swords.
I thought we were just playing the game, and then he tried to kill me.
So you killed him?
No! I just challenged him.
Challenged him to what?
To go UA like he was always talking about. I told him to take his sword and swim to shore.
Why was he wearing weights if he was gonna swim? Why did he have weights chained to his waist?
Told him that was the only way he could prove to me he was immortal.
Why would you let him do that?
To win the game.
I have no response to that.
It really is. It's trying to make, like, because there's two things here where I'm trying to judge, like, is this person equally as delusional as they're trying to make McDonald out to be?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he just a dick?
I think he's just kind of a dick, honestly. And that's the most realistic part about this whole thing. Because I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time out to sea, right? 4 years I lived on a destroyer, and we would go out for weeks, sometimes months at a time. You could do underway replenishment, so you could stay out to sea forever, right? And there was nothing to do. Like, they make it seem like the ship is bustling with activity. That's not how that works, right?
Right.
You are just bored all of the time, and as a result, you just fuck with each other.
Of course.
You just fuck with each other, and you play Uno for hours. Right?
Oh, God.
So I could the most realistic thing about this episode so far is that one of his shipmates just fucked with him. Right? But the audience can't see this. The visual, they appear to be in some sort of electronic center, probably the Combat Information Center, right?
Yeah.
And there's all this expensive equipment around, and Gibbs grabs this guy by the, collar, and then kind of backs him forcibly into a wall in an intense, violent interrogation. So this is yet another example of an interrogation that Gibbs is conducting that is highly irregular, highly unusual. And it's what is also unusual is that all the other sailors are just sitting there watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this guy that they don't even really know. I mean, he's come off the ship, right? He's some stranger. They kind of set it up earlier in the episode that these guys were kind of mistrustful, didn't quite like the fact that they were there. He's essentially beating up on one of the crewmen.
Yeah, that's what I named the clip.
Yeah, just do your thing. Yeah, you did name the clip that. And they're like, we really don't want to get involved. Just do your thing.
So we go from there, and Gibbs just throws him aside. He's like, this isn't getting us anywhere. And then they look at the diary again. I cannot stress this enough when watching the actual episode, that they do this like 4 times where they're like, the information must be in the diary. They look at it again, and then they finally are like, okay, you know what? He's trying to cut off the head of the ship. Who could the head of the ship be?
Who could that possibly be? Right.
What is it? I have in my notes, the show trusts the viewers so little that they have Abby explain to Ducky a bunch of stuff that the show has already told them. They have her explaining to Ducky, like, so the reason he did all of this is because he was trying to prove that he was immortal and he was going to walk across the ocean. That's why he did all of this. Like, that's what we just learned in the last scene.
Wait, so that is it? That's the conclusion?
We're not quite at the conclusion yet, but while they're pushing that, and that like, oh, it was the rival, that he was taking advantage of this person that was sort of out of it and mentally ill and putting too much focus into this fantasy game, that he was managed to be convinced that he could walk across the bottom of the ocean to land, and that's how he died.
I gotta think, if the guy's that crazy, they would have noticed beforehand, and
you'd think so. But that's why I also wanted to point out at the beginning of the episode, whenever they say the only way that they noticed he wasn't there is that he didn't report for duty. So maybe just nobody is checking up on him.
Yeah, it could be. That could be.
I mean, like I was saying, they say, oh, McDonald was targeting the head of the ship. Who could the head of the ship be?
Is that going to be revealed next, who the head of the ship is?
Yeah, we got it in the next clip.
Yeah, it is a mystery.
I'm missing something. I know I am. How much time?
A little over 5 minutes.
The stuff McDonald said about cutting off the head so the body will die. I mean, we're assuming that it's part of setting up a plague against the realm. But what if it meant 2 separate things?
Okay.
Zuger's website and his character were destroyed. I mean, plague against the realm could simply be referring to a computer virus.
Maybe cutting off the head is another threat.
Exactly. And McDonald was sure that the crew was aligned with his enemy. He made it clear he was just as threatened with them as he was with Convaris.
So he's talking about the crew when he refers to cutting off the head so the body will die.
That's what I'm thinking.
Who's the head of the crew?
My ship is in chaos because of your hunch, Agent Gibbs.
I characterize it more as a deduction, Scott.
Whatever the hell it is, it's pretty damn flimsy.
I appreciate that. It's all we have to go on. This seaman's mental attitude is... Okay.
Is it some kind of NCIS protocol?
It's not the boat.
It's a ship.
It's the skipper.
Where are you about this time every day, sir?
I don't see what that has
Please
to
answer the question, sir.
Here, every day, I send it...
We gotta go. Now!
Go, what the hell?
Go!
You all right? You okay?
Yes.
That was the very last of the clips. That was the very end. That was a fairly long clip for good reason, because it was just like, I don't know what to take out of that.
I mean, I have reactions to it. I mean, the first one was that it's fucking stupid, but I'm also like, the kid, we established that he's 19, right?
Uh-huh.
I was 19 once. I was 19 and in the Navy once and on a destroyer. And I did not have the intelligence or the strategic planning skills to smuggle explosives on board and then,
Right.
over a period of time, assemble a bomb in the captain's stateroom.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like, you just didn't wander into the captain's stateroom. You just didn't do that.
I neglected to mention earlier, apparently the reason they gave for this previously is that he was given access to it because the captain was having a computer problem.
You know, that's like something your great aunt will tell you and say, hey, can you come over and help me with my computer? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. It seems a little, I keep using this phrase, a little far-fetched. But okay, so within the internal consistencies of this show, the kid is an IT guy on the ship.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. And the captain was having a problem with his computer, so I assume he has a computer in his stateroom. He couldn't take the computer to the engineering room where the kid worked to have it
Guess
fixed.
not.
Yeah. But nevertheless, so the kid assembled a bomb. I've never assembled a bomb before. It's just, it's on my bucket list, right? But I've never assembled a bomb before. But I think it takes time, and you have to be careful. And the captain may have said, I got to go for a couple of hours, but I'll be back. Take a look at my computer. And the kid had to assemble this bomb in that period of time, and then also hide it in such a way that the captain's. It's a small room, and he's there a lot, right? So I guess he camouflaged or something. I don't know. It's just
my only guess. I'm not quite sure about the clip in the act. Maybe it's pointing at a desk or a computer.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was hidden inside the computer.
Inside the computer. Okay.
That's the only thing I could guess.
That's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, as far as anything about this makes sense, but yeah. So just to review, the kid decided that so it is an established fact now. It was an avenue of investigation, but we've established that the kid thought that he could walk underwater back to the land because he thought that he was immortal.
Yes.
All right, so there's a psychosis going on there, which the only other person that noticed that he was kind of wacky was his gaming partner.
Yes, this rival in the game.
Yeah, no one else on the ship figured that out. And as part of his plan to walk back to land, to Puerto Rico, I assume, to prove that he was immortal, he was also going to. Did he want to destroy the ship or destroy the crew by killing the captain?
I guess so.
Do they actually?
But that's not really how it works, is it?
Well, I mean, it's so like having been on these ships, they're not hive minds. We're not Borg, right? So if you kill the captain, all the sailors don't just collapse, right? That's not how that works. But do they ever establish a clear link between the activity of walking underwater back to land and also killing the captain? How are those two events chained together?
they're both found in the journal, and I guess so. Him being immortal is him, and what he does that results in his death is related to his ability to beat Canvaris, his rival, and he believes that everyone on the ship is pitted against him because they're on the side of his rival. That's from what I'm understanding of the internal logic of the show. That's what he believes.
But I still don't understand what does he gain out of killing the captain?
That's a fantastic question.
So it's never explained.
Not to my memory.
You know, at the end of a long night in the writers' room, there's they're all dudes, right? In 2002 or 2003, writing this, right? And they got to crank this episode out, and it's like, you know, the sun is just rising. They've been at a marathon, kind of. They're hammering this stuff out. They're at the end, right? They've written the episode, and someone says, "But wait, what is killing the captain get him? You know, what does he get out of that?" And you know, they're all exhausted. They look, he's crazy. Okay, there's no explanation. All right, he's just,
we don't need an explanation.
We don't need an explanation. Yeah.
Now, the other piece of information I wanted to throw in here is right after the end of the clip we just saw, they immediately just cut to everyone being back at NCIS.
Oh yeah, well, it's all in a day's work, right? They completed their task. Yeah.
Like after an explosive just went off on a Navy ship, just out of nowhere, they're like, anyway, back home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't have to clean up the mess.
Yeah.
So they're just back. We don't have like a closing clip of them back home.
I'm afraid I don't. I have a few little notes where Tony at the end says, "I'm so glad my parents pushed me into sports."
Yeah, rather than joining the military.
Rather than being into video games.
Oh, right. Oh, there's the. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that's it. That's the whole episode.
It sums up there. Tony bought Kate a bikini bottom and a hat, and he calls it a Puerto Rican bikini.
Oh wow, yeah. I guess he didn't attend the sexual harassment training that they talked about in the
none of
last
them
episode.
None of them did.
She probably went, but it was useless because they didn't join her. Okay, so did we want to talk a little more about how fucking stupid this? Actually, here's the thing about this episode. I'm 4 episodes into this now, right? They've all been bad, right? I was tempted to say this was the worst of the 4, right? But it's not.
Okay, interesting.
It's the weirdest of the 4. Right?
Yes.
I mean, it's just so weird.
There's also a whole thread, sort of, that I left out of the clips because it would have taken up too much time, which delves into the fact that Agent Caitlin Todd, is repeatedly very adamant that there's no way, at least according to the mother, that the victim would have committed suicide because he was Catholic. And Gibbs also sort of confronts her about it, but like, hey, you're also Catholic. You're letting your own beliefs get in the way of what you think might have happened in this case.
Yeah, I don't actually think that's just a Catholic thing about suicide. I think I was raised Catholic, but I have been surrounded by evangelicals, when I was growing up. And to the best of my knowledge, evangelicals are not real fans of suicide either.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah. So I don't know why they chose to kind of focus on Catholicism for that.
Me neither.
Yeah. Unless, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. Yeah, I'm probably going to sit with this episode a little bit tomorrow because it was just weird.
And it really has there's a whole just world of thought that goes into deconstructing, like, especially just what went into thinking this episode. Like the idea of, where are you starting with on this episode? Are you starting with, there's a 19-year-old kid who becomes convinced that he's immortal, so he tries to walk across the floor of the ocean. Is that where you start? And then you add in the video game, or do you start with the video game?
Yeah. I keep coming back to this like Satanic Panic Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I think there's an implication there that these video games are ruining kids. Wow. And do we end up with a questionable interrogation scene by Gibbs in every episode?
I'm gonna be honest. Probably.
I look forward. So from now, like as we continue to do this, we'll develop little habits and lore and so forth. So please, in future episodes, be sure to clip out, to provide a clip of the questionable interrogation scene from that episode.
Then we can string them along together. 2 hours and 37 minutes of Agent Leroy Jethro Gibbs questionable interrogation.
Yeah, just pushing people around to get answers. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just sort of outright lying.
Yeah.
In one of the first ones.
Yeah.
So now that we're at the end of this, we've gotten through 4 episodes. How are we feeling about ratings?
Do you mean do we want to continue rating them or
just what is your rating for the episode?
Oh,
maybe we could talk about the ethics or the desire of us to continue rating them later.
Well, I'm just thinking in the future. I think we're so new at this. We've been reviewing them against each other, rating them against each other, right?
Yeah.
Assuming that this exercise does not fill us with ennui, and we just sort of step away from the entire exercise, right?
Yeah.
Assuming that doesn't happen, when we're 50 episodes in, we're not going to be able to compare episode 51 to the previous 50, right?
Right.
So I think we should just. One of my favorite podcasts, they review horror movies, and at the end of every episode, they rate things on a completely ridiculous scale, right?
Oh yeah.
So I am going to rate this 4.5 Claymore swords out of 10.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
Wait, by the way, is the podcast Werewolf Ambulance?
It is not. It is Fright Day.
So 4.75 out of 10 Claymores, is that right?
Yeah, 4.5, 4.75. It doesn't really matter.
Okay. Yeah. What should I put? I'm gonna say, I'm going to rate this. I'm gonna rate this 3 of those wood engraving things that the Japanese used to force people to deconvert from Christianity. The wood carvings of saints that they were to tread on. I'm going to rate that 3 of those things out of 10.
Okay.
That was so convoluted.
Yeah, that was pretty out there, but I think the conclusion we can come to is that this episode wasn't very good.
Yeah, I mean, especially in contrast to the previous episode, episode 3, which goes so bonkers, so drastically that this one just doesn't really compare.
Oh yeah, that one was on fire, right? That one was just electric with what did they just do? And also it was racist because they had Saudi sounding names, right?
Yeah.
Which clearly that's certainly enough evidence to deprive them of their civil rights. But this one was just, like I said, I see it coming back to it. It was just kind of weird. I'm like, that was odd. So talk to me about our social media presence.
So right now, if you'd like to yell at us exclusively, you can email us at gibbsittomestraight@gmail.com. And you can find us on Blue Sky. For the most part, all of our socials are linked in podcast descriptions and YouTube video descriptions. On Blue Sky, we are GITMS podcast .bluesky. You can find us there. If you contact us by email, we're probably not going to reply. If you contact us via Blue Sky, we might reply.
Well, you're the only one that has access to the email, which is fine. But if we do get an email from all the people that have emailed us thus far are you and me, right?
You and me and one of our other listeners.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you do get an email from a talent agent or something like that, I recommend responding to them, right? Because social media.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, please respond to them.
Maybe I should leave a business inquiries email somewhere.
There you go. Yeah, that's very optimistic. But are you actually posting any content on Blue Sky?
I've posted 3 or 4 things. One of them was just hey, did you know that this is a thing? And then the other one was clarifying that we're not related to the show and we're not related to the interview /recap show that is being done by Micah Weatherly and another actor from later on in the show's passage.
Right. That show, I assume that they are taking the show a lot more seriously than we are.
Yes, yeah. They're interviewing various other stars from the show. In fact, one of the things I wanted to mention, I don't know if we could do a mini-sode on this at some point if we need to, is talking about the trailer for the new spin-off series they're doing, which just like is rife with older actors trying to do action scenes. And I like, God bless them for giving it their all. Yeah.
Do we have any followers on Blue Sky?
We have 8 followers on Blue Sky.
Wow.
Yeah, the other one of them just says spam. One of them is marked as being spam.
That's fantastic. Exactly.
Please remember, if you enjoy this podcast, to give us a rating on the various podcasting platforms you are listening to us on, because that early on is what is essential to making sure that this show is more visible to new listeners.
Yeah, and you know, I'm an avid podcast listener, and even the big podcasters will say exactly what you said. And every time they say it, I kind of roll my eyes and think I'm never going to do that. But having said that, please rate our podcast.
Please.
Don't do what I do. I'm a bad person. Be a good person and rate our podcast.
And we love you for it.
Yeah,
in the early days, we're the first 15 people that I see that rate stuff for us, I will jot those down, the usernames or something, and I'll put them in very small font on something that I take dearly and feel preciously about, like all of the little Godzilla keychain monsters I have. I will write them on each of those, and I will remember you fondly for it.
Yeah, that's not creepy at all. I was thinking like maybe one of our favorite podcasts, of course, Knowledge Fight. They send out buttons.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you rate the first 15 people who rate our podcast 5 stars, it has to be 5 stars.
5.
This is a transaction, okay? The first 15 people who rate our podcast with 5 stars. If you are willing to give us your mailing address, we will send you a button. I didn't specify what that button looked like or what it was for.
Yeah, and it may not be for a while.
That's right. Yeah, that's very true. And if you live in the UK, I don't know.
We have button funds.
Yeah, that's true. So we need funding, and that's the other thing. If you live in the UK, postage from the United States to the UK is a little pricey. So we need to work on our brand.
I'll put it inside of a book so we get cheaper postage.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay. So let's see. Did we miss anything? Did we cover everything? We rated. So we covered the episode. It was awful. We rated the episode, and we both decided it was awful. We kind of waxed philosophic about a variety of things. And then you talked about our social media. You encourage people to email us, and you encourage people to rate us, to review us. I think that's everything.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Robby Thesword. This is Ashley J. Williams, and this has been Gibbs It To Me Straight, Episode 4, in which we reviewed Episode 4 of NCIS, The Immortals. Is that right? The Immortals? The Immortals. And thank you very much for listening, and thank you, Robby.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me.